Well, hey there, kiddos. We are going to continue solving quadratics, and today we're going to solve them using something called the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula comes in really handy when the quadratic you are trying to solve doesn't factor nicely or you don't feel like factoring. It's just a formula. You just plug in and go. Okay, here's what it looks like, and it looks kind of scary, but it's really not. Okay, so x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root. It's plus or minus because we got a square root symbol here. B squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All that is going to happen is we're going to find our quadratic, we're going to label what a, b, and c are, we're going to plug them in, and then we have a calculator that we're going to use to help us. So we're going to skip number 1, and we're going to start over here at number 2. Here is number 2. There's a 1 right here that you don't see. So here's a, b is negative 4, c is negative 7, so we're going to plug into our formula. So I have x equals the opposite of b is positive 4 plus or minus the square root of b squared, and since b was negative, I'm going to use parentheses, so I have negative 4 squared minus 4 times a, which was 1, times c, which was negative 7, all over 2a, which is 2 times 1. So we're going to simplify. When I simplify this, I grab my calculator and I type in this entire part minus the square root symbol. I type in this entire thing just like I wrote it so that I can find out what that number is, and then I worry about the square root later. There's no reason to go a step at a time. This comes out to 44, and 2 times 1 is 2. So here's what I have. So now this plus or minus means I'm going to have to solve this twice. To find x, I'm going to have to do 4 plus the square root of 44 divided by 2. And then I'm going to have to do 4 minus the square root of 44 divided by 2. And again, I have a calculator. I'm going to plug this into my calculator. I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth, and this one comes out to 5.31. This one comes out to negative 1.32. So my two roots are these. These are the answers to number 2. I know I put them under number 1. I ran out of room. So my two solutions for number 2 are those two right there. They're not perfect, they're not exact, which is why the quadratic formula was so nice here. So let's try another one. Let's go down here to number 3. You'll see that number 3 is not written in standard form, so the first thing we gotta do is make it equal 0. So we're gonna add 1 to both sides, so you end up with 4x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. So we're gonna go back to our formula. Change colors so that it looks, see what's up. So I have x equals, this is a, this is b, and this is c. Well, the opposite of b is negative 4, plus or minus the square root of 4 squared, because b is 4, minus 4 times a, which was 4, times c, which was 1, all over 2 times a. Simplify that, just like with my calculator. Plug that in. This comes out to be the square root of 0 over 8. Well, the square root of 0 is just 0. So here's what I have. I have x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus 0 divided by 8. What's so nice about having this 0 here is that whether I add 0 or subtract 0, the answer is the same. So I only have to do this once. Choose. Do you want to add or subtract? I don't care. Just pick one. Negative 4 plus 0 is negative 4 over 8. Reduces to negative 1/2. That is your only root for this one, and we're going to talk about why that is in just a second. Now there is a special part to the quadratic formula called the discriminant that can be used to determine how many solutions a quadratic is going to have. And if you know how to use the discriminant, that question that we just did, you would have automatically known that there's only one answer, I only have to do this once. You'll also know right off the bat if there's not going to be an answer if you're paying attention to the discriminant. You have this foldable built into your book, so we're going to talk about what the discriminant is and then practice. So remember the quadratic formula. It's that long formula we just wrote down. All the discriminant is just this part that's under the square root or the radical sign. So it's just b squared minus 4ac. The only part of the quadratic formula that you want to look at when doing the discriminant is just that part. Now you don't even have to take the square root of it. You just have to do b squared minus 4ac. So we're just going to worry about this part, and if I can use this part and I can find out what this number is, I can automatically know how many solutions there are. So we're going to start with the one that just has one solution. Here's how we know if I'm only going to have one answer, like in the example I just did. So we're going to do the discriminant, so we're going to do the b squared minus 4AC. We're going to, so here I have A, B, and C. So in this case, B is 2, so I have 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 1. And when I put that in my calculator and do the math, I get that this comes out to be 0. Whenever the number in the discriminant equals 0, that means you're only going to have one solution. If it is anything other than 0, it means something different, but 0 means one solution. So if I'd have known that, if I'd have done discriminant first, that problem we just did, you'd have known, well, there's only one answer, I only have to do this once, and that's why. And there's even a picture here of the graph. You can see there's only one solution because it just touches the x-axis, and that's it. Now for how do I tell if there's two solutions? Again, back to the discriminant. So I'm going to do my b squared minus 4ac. And so b is negative 4, so this time I'm going to put it in parentheses, so I have negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 3. And when I do that math, because I'm going to use my calculator, I get that this equals 4. Since this is a positive number, that tells me I'm going to have two solutions. So 0 means one solution, positive number means two solutions, because that means it's going to go, it's going to cross the x-axis and then cross the x-axis again, so it's going to have two answers. So let's talk about what happens when there's no solution. Go back to your discriminant. In this case, b is negative 2, so I have negative 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times 2. And when I multiply that out, I get that that comes out to be negative 4. And because this is a negative number, if you will remember, the discriminant is under a square root sign. And so when you do this in the quadratic formula as a whole, you end up taking the square root of a negative, which we don't know how to do. And so that means that I have no real solutions. And the reason there are no real solutions is because you'll learn in Algebra 2 that there could be something called imaginary solutions, which is a totally other thing. We'll talk about it later. But here's the reason there's no solutions. When you graph it, you see that this parabola never, ever, ever even touches the x-axis. Therefore, there can't be a solution because the solution is the x-intercept. Doesn't touch the x-axis, no x-intercept. So let's do a couple more just to be sure you get it. I want you to look at number 5. I want you to use the discriminant. Pause, come back, and check your answer. So after you do it, hopefully you get that your discriminant is a negative number. It comes out to negative 16, which means I have no real solution. So again, this is one of those that never crosses the y-axis. If you want to practice some more, you can do number 2 and number 3. You can come in and check them tomorrow. I will tell you one of them is one solution and one of them is two solutions. So you have one of each at 1, 2, and 3. If you want to check them when you come into class tomorrow, that'll be great. I will see you then.